From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. My guest this week is State Representative Andy Holt. He's at times one of the most outspoken and controversial members of the Tennessee General Assembly. By his own description, he's an unapologetic, conservative, Republican member of the House. He represents District 76, which includes the Dresden area in West Tennessee. That's in Weakley County. Obion County is also in his district, along with a part of Carroll County. Representative Holt, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Now, I found that unapologetic conservative description on your own Facebook page. What do you mean an unapologetic conservative?
Well, I think there are definitely components of our Constitution and of our way of life and of government for which may be offensive to some, but in many ways need no apology. There's obviously a group of individuals that don't agree with my stand on firearms, don't agree with my stand on traditional family values or other things, but I feel no need to apologize for those characteristics.
Now, does your description mean that there are some conservatives who apologize about that?
I don't know that I would necessarily consider those folks as conservative as myself, but we do definitely have a group of individuals who feel the need to constantly apologize for what I think are rights.
Now, in recent days, you've received extensive national, even international publicity about a fundraiser you held last weekend. You gave away 2 AR-15 assault rifles as a part of that fundraiser. What made you decide to do that?
Well, I want to make one correction. First of all, they're not assault rifles.
Well, AR-15 rifles.
Yeah, AR-15 rifles, that's exactly right. And the reason why we did that was, again, to celebrate our Second Amendment rights. It was a campaign fundraiser, and we thought this was a good opportunity in our local area. It's a pretty sought-after firearm because of its use as a target shooting weapon, as a hunting weapon, and also for self-defense as well. And so that's the reason why we picked that. Of course, our event was planned long before the attack in Orlando.
You made the original announcement of it right before the Orlando thing. Then after the Orlando event with the mass shooting there, you sort of doubled down and said you're going to give away 2. Some people found that to be potentially insensitive to the families and the victims.
Yeah, and you know, I think probably those individuals would have found it to be insensitive that I was giving away 1 rifle before the event. We definitely had some complaints. We had complaints lodged from New York, from California, Oregon, Washington specifically, but from the local area.
Washington State?
Washington State. But from here in the local area, across Tennessee, and specifically in my district, which is really the group of people that I concern myself with most, there was no significant complaint. There was actually quite a bit of attendance to the event, and I think a lot of support for the idea generally.
Now, who won the 2 AR-15s? People from your district?
One gentleman was from the district, and one was just outside. He was from Dyer County.
As far as you know, they're responsible gun owners. They've owned guns in the past?
That is correct, and we do know for sure that they passed their background check, so we know that they should be in good shape to own and possess those firearms.
The Tennessee Democratic Party again this week blasted your gun giveaway, calling it reckless and irresponsible. They said your event was a media circus purely about politics, that it was there to promote Republican congressional candidates in your area, some of whom were there. And it's nothing about promoting responsible gun ownership. What do you say?
Oh, I disagree with that in a lot of different ways, but it's pretty obvious that Mary Mancini has made me target number 1. Typically, that's what liberals do. She's done everything that she can to defame me and run me down, but ultimately, I'm a believer that all media is good media. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. And yeah, there's absolutely some promotion of the 8th Congressional District Republican candidates that we're going to run this coming August, and feel pretty confident that they had a great opportunity to engage with almost 500 people that were at our event.
Your event was headlined as annual. Are you going to do this annually or every election year? And are you going to give away guns with each one of them each year?
Yeah, the plan is for us to meet annually from this point forward. And yeah, the plan is also most likely to continue to give away firearms as time goes on, and maybe diversify the types of firearms that we give away, but we'll probably always stick with at least 1 AR-15.
I mentioned the congressional candidates that were there. That race has attracted attracting a lot of candidacies because the incumbent Stephen Fincher decided not to seek re-election.
Yeah.
You thought about running. Why did you decide not to put your hat in the ring?
Well, I've got 5 small children, and that's a big part of the decision. But ultimately, the biggest part of the decision, what laid heaviest on my heart, was the fact that I don't want to go to Washington and have my hands tied. We can make definitive change here in the state of Tennessee. I'm one of 132 legislators here in the state.
Instead of one of 435?
Well, 535 if you count the U.S. Senate including there. And so I feel like my time here in the state of Tennessee is a better service to myself and I think to the people of Tennessee.
You're in your mid-30s. Your children are going to grow up. You think when they're a little bit older, you might be interested in running for another office besides state representative?
Well, I'll be honest. The biggest reason why I didn't run is because I didn't feel, honestly, the Lord's calling in my life to do that at this point. And regardless of my age or the age of my children, at the point that I do feel like that's what the Lord would direct me to do, that's where I'll go, if that is ever the case.
Now, I'm not sure this was tied into your event, but you also recently helped pay the gun permit fees for 6 people. I think you asked them to call your office and you would somehow select 6 of them to help pay for that. Was that related to this? Why did you decide to do that?
It was actually 5, but 5. Yeah, related to this whole idea, what we saw is there is a lot of misconception out there about firearm ownership. I believe in specifically related to the types of weapons that people choose and why they choose those firearms. My goal is, in contrast to what Chairman Mancini would say, is to promote responsible firearm ownership and also just to generally promote firearm ownership. What we see is that typically folks that are armed and cognizant and aware of how to use that weapon find themselves to be in a much more safe position.
How did paying for these fees help promote responsible gun ownership?
Well, I think what we do is anytime we attract people to the gun ownership network, what we do is we ultimately bring people in. You know, a person can't receive their concealed carry permit unless they have had the 8 hours of training. And, you know, in many ways, I would promote individuals to exceed that training and to go to other firearms courses where they can protect themselves and others if the case may be needed. But what we're trying to do is draw attention to the fact that gun ownership is a constitutional right. In my opinion, there is at this point such a cloud of controversy around the idea of firearms ownership that I think that we may be pushing some folks away from a constitutional right that otherwise they could enjoy and benefit from.
State Representative Andy Holt is our guest on Inside Politics. We're talking Second Amendment rights and other things going on Capitol Hill and in Washington. Back to continue our conversation after this break.